over. And when you're screwing in the screws, they are going to be, so for me, they were pretty tight. So what I did was I did the two corners opposite. I screwed it in about halfway, and then I did the same with these corners. And then I did these halfway, and then I went back and did it all the way for the rest of them. Same order, kind of. And the reason why you want to do that and you don't want to screw like just one corner in all the way, because then it'll be like slanted. And so if you screw it in halfway, like slowly at a time, it will feel more, it'll just screw on better, because it's not one side is like extremely tilted and the other side you have to like force it down. So if you do the opposite corners halfway and then do these halfway and then do it all the way, you'll end up getting like this flush, right? So if you do have a gap, you haven't screwed it in all the way, but if you've noticed that it's like a little difficult for you to screw in, just do what I said with like doing the halfway in the corners, and then it should eventually like even out like this. And it is going to be, so for me it was tight, so if you feel like, oh man, I'm using a lot of pressure, that's fine, because you have two gaskets, right? And so it is going to be a tight fit, at least it was for me. But yeah. So if you're watching this in the future and you're confused whether you're doing it right, just keep going. And if you do break it, disclaimer, I am not responsible. I'm not responsible. This is what worked for me, okay? And then if you are trying to put in the PE foam and you're like, well, it doesn't work, you do have to cut it out right here. Yeah, you do have to. But yeah, so some pros and cons about this board. So one thing I really liked with this board was how accurate the gaskets were. The fact that I could align the gasket to the very edge and then push it down or let it lay down, and it would be exactly aligned from edge to edge. I maybe this is just me being picky, but I love that. I don't like when you have gaskets and you put it on the edge hoping to align it, and then the other side is just like way too short, right? And then you kind of have to like finagle it. You gotta take it off and then like try to recenter it. Maybe it's just one of those things that I'm picky about, but I really did like how the gaskets just like aligned, like pretty spot on. As I said earlier, I do like the back that it's blank. The only thing that I would say is that these screw holes are really tight. Like I felt like I was putting a lot of my like body into making sure that it was like screwed all the way. I don't know if that's because of the thickness of the gaskets or if it was the screws, but I mean once you got it all on, like it's on very securely, right? And so I think the only thing is like if you struggle putting the case together, and then later on you want to remove like these blockers, or if you want to change anything out, you do have to do the whole thing again. So but in terms of the blockers being on the top case, I don't mind the seams, right? But I could see some people saying, oh, well, I don't like seeing the seams. But if you take these blockers off, obviously you don't see the seams, but I think just having that option is really nice. The spacebar was a lot different than the rest of the board, but I don't know that much about keyboard design to tell you why, but I liked it. And then I'm kind of curious to see how it sound without like the foam and the case foam, but I will say I'm not typically like a very foamy person. I don't like foam, right? Unless like the designer designed it with it in mind, right? But yeah, those are my thoughts. Yeah. Oh, one other thing is that so there's nothing to align the metal part with other than the screws itself. So if this starts shifting, you want to use the screws to make sure they're all aligned, right? So that's the only thing. If you notice that this part's shifting while you're trying to put it together, what I would recommend is putting all the screws in, and then that will keep it in place for you when you're screwing it in, and it won't shift. Okay, well that's it. Hope you guys liked my in-depth thing. Yeah, I don't know what to call it. Analysis? I don't know. But yes, thank you Feather, thank you Kiwi, Keys Fancy, CMM for letting me build the board. Breakdown analysis. Yeah. I'm using my critical thinking skills that I learned in school to make a analysis on this keyboard.